Here in the West, we tend to focus most on terrorist attacks that are carried out in the West, and that's perfectly understandable. The closer to your home a terrorist attack is, the greater its potential impact on your life and family and community, and therefore the more attention it demands. But if we really want to understand Islam and the depravity it leads to, we can't ignore terrorist attacks in other parts of the world. Take, for instance, two recent attacks in Kabul, Afghanistan. NPR reports. Gunmen disguised as policemen stormed Kabul University in the Afghan capital in an hours-long assault on Monday, killing at least 19 people and wounding 22 more, including students who jumped out of windows to flee the attackers. I read a more recent update on the attack. The death toll is up to 35, with 50 wounded. It is the second attack on a learning center in Kabul in recent days and comes amid a spike in violence across the country. Imagine that, a spike in violence in a place like Afghanistan. The assault coincided with a book fair that attracted senior Afghan and Iranian officials to the sprawling campus, including Iranian Ambassador Bahadur Aminian. It was not immediately clear whether any of the officials were killed or wounded. Irony of all ironies. Followers of a prophet who bragged about his illiteracy attack a university during a book fair. But it seems students were targeted in the well-coordinated attack. A 22-year-old public administration student said she heard a deafening blast. Then, I saw with my own eyes there were a lot of attackers in police uniforms, said Nilüfer Faramand. She says the assailants rushed to the law internship center where she was in class. Notice, they were attacking the law internship center. Someone yelled at students to flee, she said. Later, she learned on a WhatsApp group that gunmen had taken 2 classes hostage and opened fire on the students and teachers. Some students jumped out of their second-floor class windows to flee the gunmen, she said. Other students scaled over high university walls to flee the attackers, and at least 2 were admitted into a hospital, said Marco Puntin of the medical aid group Emergency, which runs several faculties across Afghanistan. If there's one thing they need in Afghanistan, it's a lot of medical aid due to the never-ending terrorist attacks. Graphic photographs of the carnage were uploaded by Afghan reporters, suggesting the extent of the horror within the university's classrooms. One showed young men curled into a corner, blood pooled around them amid upturned chairs. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for Monday's attack, the second it has carried out in Kabul in less than 10 days, after a suicide bomber late last month blew himself up outside an education center, killing more than 20 people, including many students. ISIS also claimed responsibility for that attack, which was effectively a copycat of a 2018 attack by the extremist group on an education center that killed dozens of teenagers who were studying for university entrance exams. The ISIS claim says 2 of its fighters attacked a group of graduating judges and investigators with their weapons and gunfire. They claim they hit 80 people who had rejected Islam. The leaders of ISIS are focused on long-term victory. They don't just want to slaughter judges and politicians and investigators. They want to slaughter the next generation of judges and politicians and investigators before these future judges and politicians and investigators can ever get in Islam's way. So they keep attacking students. Americans and Europeans are shocked when jihadis kill Christians attending church or people out for a meal. But in Afghanistan, kids can't even go to school without having to worry about jihadis slaughtering them in the name of Allah. Why would Muslim terrorists target students, especially when those students are some version of Muslims? Well, Islam isn't just here to convert you. Islam is here to dominate the entire world. Jihadis view themselves as being in a constant state of war with anything that stands in the way of Islam's domination of the entire world. And if you're a non-Muslim, or even a Muslim from the wrong sect of Islam, or even a Muslim from the right sect of Islam, but you're fighting for the wrong team, then you are a target. And the Quran makes it extremely easy to justify killing just about anyone. In Surah 4, verse 65 of the Quran, Allah declares, "But know, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, O Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them, and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions, and accept them with full submission." Notice, Islam means submission. But you submit to Allah by submitting to Muhammad, and you submit to Muhammad by mindlessly agreeing with everything he says. If you don't make Muhammad judge in all your disputes, if you find in yourself any resistance against Muhammad's decisions, you have no real Islamic faith. You're not a real Muslim. You're either an unbeliever or a hypocrite. And what does Allah say about unbelievers and hypocrites? O Prophet Muhammad, strive hard against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be harsh against them. Their abode is hell, and worst indeed is that destination. The Arabic here for strive is wage jihad. Wage jihad not only against unbelievers, people who don't believe in Islam, but also against hypocrites, people who believe in Islam but who aren't following it properly. This is, of course, a recipe for endless bloodshed, because one Muslim group will always be able to point to another Muslim group and say, "You're not following Islam properly, so I'm commanded to fight you just as I'm commanded to fight the unbelievers." So, attacks against non-Muslims will continue. Attacks against Muslims will continue. If jihadis don't have the resources to march in and subjugate an area, they'll focus on destabilizing it. They'll try to keep the area as weak as possible until they are able to march in and subjugate it as Allah commands. If you want to understand how far jihadis are willing to go in their efforts to violently subjugate the entire world, if you want to know what the future holds if Islam continues to spread, there's no better place to look than Afghanistan.